Hello and welcome to the Home Turn YouTube channel. I am your presenter, Josh. How are you all doing today? Thank you for tuning in to the new channel. I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone's having a great day whenever they're watching this. And I appreciate you giving us a time, as I know we're a fresh face on the racing media game. Um, just to cut it short, what we are looking to do here is we're going to be a discussion-based channel, running through some hot topics of racing, ideally in the week before running out to big meetings on the weekends. Obviously, giving previews to big festivals like Cheltenham, Aintree, and then we'll see into the flat season as well. With the run up now to Cheltenham, being that it is only, what is it, just around a month away, everything is going to be geared towards that. Ideally, going to be posting ideally 2 videos a week, catch us up to date, up to speed with everything that's going on, get some tips out in regards to who I think potentially could be putting us with a good slip going into the festival. Before we move on to obviously the later part of the season with the Grand National in mind at that point in time. So just to kind of break down the structure, this video is going to be simply based on the Novice and Juvenile Hurdles for the Cheltenham Festival 2024. And then the next video is going to be focused on the novice chases, the handicaps, and then we'll see into open company after that as well. So yeah, to cut a long story short, that's what we're looking to do, and we'll get getting into that right away. Thank you guys. So as mentioned there, we're going to be jumping straight into it with the action, obviously for the novice hurdles at this year's Cheltenham Festival. The main three we've been looking at, well, the main three, the ones we're going to be looking at, the Supreme novice hurdle, the Birmingham / the Ballymore. I'm going to say either. I don't like change. And then obviously the Albert Bartlett. And then obviously with the juveniles, we're going to be looking at the Triumph and then the Boodles a little bit down the road. Now, let's kick it off straight away with the first race of the festival, which is obviously the Supreme Novices Hurdle. And this, like the Birmingham, is going to be dictated all behind one horse, and that is going to be Ballyburn. Now, there was obviously strong market feel after the DRF, and then Arthur Willie Mullins' comments this week in his stable tour, where he suggested that Ballyburn is most likely going to be supreme bound. However, obviously, as of time of recording today, we have just watched Tully Hill run up an impressive winner at Punchestown, beating No Flies on him and Gigaro pretty convincingly, actually, in a very eye-catching performance. Clearly come on significantly since his maiden hurdle, which was a bit of a disaster. In the jumping department, he jumped a lot slicker today and has clearly a lot of engine. The engine he showed in his bumper days. So he's opened up a ride there potentially for Paul Townend, who without Ballyburn didn't really have one in regards to Willie Mullins's kind of crop of novice hurdlers. He's got a lot of more in the Bar and Bingham and then the Ballymore, sorry, and the Albert Bartlett than he does necessarily in Supreme, where he's obviously going to have potentially Ballyburn, who would be Paul Townend's go-to ride. But then apart from that, in regards to mystical power, that's going to be Mark Walsh with it being the JP connection. So this has opened up a route or an avenue whereby Paul Townend's going to have two pretty top quality rides in the Supreme and then the Ballymore, because the issue he's going to have necessarily, if let's say Ballyburn were to go to the Supreme, he goes and wins the Supreme, which I think he would do whichever race he does go into. If you actually look at the market for the Bingham, bear me 2 seconds here. Outside of Ballyburn, he's not going to get on mystical power. He's going to have to pick between either reading Tommy Wrong or Atlantique. And you'd imagine of reading Tommy Wrong potentially would go with Darren Jacob, obviously being in the double green. So, and I think Atlantique is one a bit of a shirker. I don't think he's necessarily one that's going to be putting his head down and winning a race at Cheltenham Festival. So, if Ballyburn were to go to the Supreme, this is what I'm trying to get to. I don't think Paul Townend's ride per se in the Bearing Bingham is going to be that strong, because Slade Steele I think will take all the beating regardless, where obviously with him going to avoid um, a Ballyburn. That's where connections are in the Bromhead and Rob Corrigan said. Um, so I think from a Paul Townend perspective, Hurley Hill's performance today gives him a very interesting dilemma. Same with Willie Mullins, and I wouldn't really be wanting to put in my eggs in any of the baskets. up until 2 week, week before the festival, until declaration, probably before declarations come out because he is that Willie Mullins bingo is that brutal. I full disclosure have bet on Ballyburn to win the Ballymore all year since September Antepost. So I hope he does. Fingers crossed for me. Goes to the Ballymore, but I still have a slight doubt in my mind. The thing that I wanted to discuss really about the Supreme is if Ballyburn doesn't go there, then obviously that would open the door up for Mystical Power. Now, personally speaking, I don't think Mystical Power is winning any single race at Cheltenham this year. I don't think he'd win the Supreme even without Ballyburn, and he's definitely not going to win the Ballymore. I don't think with Slade Steele in there. Um, he's obviously got a serious amount of boot just based on his breeding. That's Galileo. So from Galileo out of Annie Power, he is bred into racing royalty. He just can't jump. And I just think that's going to really mean he struggles in a Supreme, where obviously you're going to be packed up behind horses and trying to jump blind. But then also in the Ballymore, it's not going to serve him any kind of favours. And I think Slade Steele would trample all over him, personally speaking. So you're looking at the Supreme field, then you've got the likes of Firefox at around 6-1 for the Supremes. I think 7-1 is best price. You've got Jericho de Repenay, I think, is around 7-1, but potentially 9-1 best price. Yeah, 9-1 at Betfair is best price for Jericho de Repenay. I would be windy on both of them. I think Firefox may have looked well. He obviously did beat Ballyburn in their maiden hurdle at Fairy House back in the October November time. I and then obviously he's gone and bombed out slightly at the Lawless and Nace. Deemed to be a non-stay on the day with Gordon's not running very well. I'm still just not massively keen on him. He could run well. I just think there may be a few better than him in this. Jericho de Repenay is the biggest hype horse out there, apart from Salvatore Monday. Twitter love to get their teeth stuck into these kind of horses, and the issue is that they obviously don't always perform. Jericho de Repenay, I would not be massively impressed on anything he's put up so far on paper. His wins at Newbury, they've been absolutely Mickey Mouse races. He beat Secret Squirrel last time, who couldn't win a Taunton Novices hurdle the other day, so I wouldn't be massively keen on him. I mean, looking towards a bit further down in the market, you've got the likes of Slade Steele here. I think Slade Steele would run really well if Ballyburn goes for the Bearing Bingham. He could be a bit of a bet actually, around 16-1 best price, 25-1 best price. But I think with a bookmaker that would give you non-runner no bet, I believe he's probably 20-1 best price here. Um, that could be of interest because he's obviously not going to go here unless Ballyburn ends up going for the Bearing Bingham. But he's obviously he does have enough boot. He's won over 2 miles and he's won over 2-4, and he's won on soft and heavy ground. So he definitely obviously has the ability to stay, but he does have just enough pace in order to get him through what I think could be pretty hot, keep him in contention into a Supreme, where he could then use his stamina going up the hill once everything kind of burned off in front of him. So he could be of interest, and I think actually as a non-runner no bet play, just to cover yourself if and when or where Ballyburn goes, he is of interest. However, the one I wanted to point out is this is, funnily enough, and probably all over the place here, is actually going to be a British chance. I think this, I might get completely ridiculed. I might get this guy get snippeted, and I'm going to be um, made to definitely eat my words potentially. But I do think a British hopeful could have a chance of potentially placing if Ballyburn goes here, or even if Slade still goes here. I don't think he'd necessarily win, being the horse I'm about to mention. But I think he's have a chance of getting in the frame, maybe even in the front four, and on the day to get extra places. It could be a shout. This is Tell Her the Name, trained by Ben Pauling. Um, I'm waiting for the laughs. Tell Her the Name is currently best price 25-1. I think you can get non-runner bet at that price as well, which is obviously if you can, then it's just a better thing to have than not have. But I think if it got really boggy, Tell Her the Name probably would get pulled. It was a shame last weekend was entered into bet for hurdle for rating about 138, I believe, or 136, which I felt was extremely lenient. I'd had money on actually at around, I think it was 12s, I think each way, 12 to 1 each way. Would Cobham dropped up to ride. That was a bit of a shame that he'd been taken off. He may actually get the ride on this. Actually, looking down, if Cobham's on board, that could have be definitely of interest. But kind of going off a bit of a tangent there, I think Tell the Name by far the best British hope. I think he will definitely beat Jericho de Repene. I think Jericho de Repene could be out the back of the telly, to be honest with you, in this one. Um, that's my hot take. I would be interested at 25 to 1 each way to have the name for a place. You know, ran very respectably on British rules debut. Ascot obviously came up a short head behind Django Bay Ascot, who then went and subsequently won the Grade 1 Tolworth at Aintree day before Christmas or around Boxing Day time. Um, no, it was Boxing Day, wasn't it? And funny enough, Tellherthename actually ran in that race as well, but was pulled up due to a lot of action. So clearly there was something that went slightly amiss that day. But he was definitely cruising up with the pace and was looking to come make a strong challenge, swinging in, and then something went wrong, and he did get pulled by Keelan Woods. He is obviously with his form, he has only won twice, and they're both times have been at Huntington. Yes, but the horses he beat at Huntington in both those races, he done it convincingly. Especially last time out where he beat Lucky Place by 14 lengths. Lucky Place then subsequently went on, has won at Doncaster since then convincingly. Ran up a very close second to Golden Ace, who is now a contender for the Mayor's Novice at Taunton before obviously running and pushing Gidley Park all the way in that Grade 2 or the other weekend at Cheltenham. So I think that form has a little bit, considering it is a Huntington form, of substance to it. They put Lucky Place away by 14 lengths. Um, and then obviously Keelan Woods has said that this is the best horse he has ever ridden. Now they also have handstands in the yards who went in that Ben Pauling yard, who obviously went and won in the week just gone. The Sydney Banks listed hurdle against Django Bay. So they clearly think a fair bit of Tellherthename. I think they were confident in regards to his run at the in the Tolworth, and then obviously something went amiss. Came up fairly quickly after that, blew off the cobwebs at Huntington again. I do think he's going to have a really good chance of 25 to 1 of getting a place. I think he could be potentially overlooked in the market. If Ballyburn were to go to the Ballymore, and it's Slade Steele running in this, there's more of a window open for that. But I just think potentially at a bigger price, Hell of the Name could run into a place at a nice price. But there's not really much point, I'd say, backing it now. I don't think you're going to get much better of a price than you are on a day. You're probably going to get an extra place or two. So other place bet potentially something to look into. But as a whole, the Supreme is going to be completely determined, as with the Ballymore, on where Ballyburn ends up going. Onto the Ballymore as well. I mean, as I said, wherever Ballyburn goes, Slade still won't go, and then wherever Slade still goes, who's going to win? I just think those two are going to win, Ballyburn and Slade Steel. But I mean, you look towards the end or the a little bit down in the betting in regards to the Ballymore. I don't think Mystical Power would be one I'd be taking on. I think, as I said, his jumping isn't necessarily something I want to have on my side. Um, Obviously, if he's stepping up, if he needs to step up to the Ballymore, which he would if Ballyburn were to go to the Supreme, then obviously that'd be the first time he's gone over 2.5 and 2 miles 5, and he's obviously got the breeding for it. But I just don't necessarily think he's quite got the class, personally speaking, um, to win that race or any race for that matter at the festival. You then look down at Mullins holds a very strong hand in this. You can have a little antique. I imagine will run in this. Reading Tommy wrong, the Lawless and Ace 1 and 2, they're both going to run. I wouldn't be massively keen on Il Atlantique just because I think the two times he's really got into a battle, whether that would be, I know it was Firefox and then reading Tommy wrong, when he's been eyeballed, he hasn't found anything. And for me personally, that would put me off slightly. Reading Tommy wrong, I think, is a interesting yardstick. He could go quite well. But I don't think he's right at that top level, which it would take to potentially overturn like the likes of a Ballyburn or a Slade Steel. And at 6 to 1, I think he's just one you can kind of let go. He may be interesting on the day, potentially depending on how that race cuts up. But I don't think he'd be getting anywhere near a Ballyburn. I don't think he'd be getting anywhere near a Slade Steel either. So Looking a little bit further down, you do have the likes from a British standpoint. You have handstands in there, who's obviously just won a Sydney Bank, so I wouldn't necessarily be massively keen on that. But then you've got the two main contenders, that being Gidley Park and then Captain Teague. Just to let you know, I think Captain Teague, whether it's the Bartlett or whether it's the Ballymore, he will run, I think, and I think he's going to be pulled up. If you could bet on a horse being pulled up, that would be my banker, Cheltenham. He's going to blow the fuck up. 100%. Every single horse that's come out of that shallow hurdle in that Newbury just after Christmas time, they've all blown up on the next run. Farronage did it, the Nichols horse. Farronage was pulled up in that race and then got pulled up at Musselburgh by Bryony Frost twice. Look Away was blew up in the Betfair hurdle. Was I don't even know if he finished. He may have been pulled up, but he was definitely at the back of the TV. And then Johnny who was fourth in that as well, was very I'd say very disappointing when he got smacked by Gidley Park. Was fourth in that race and finished very tamely indeed. I think Captain T gets pulled up by the race he's in. Personally, I don't think he even finishes. But he'll go to one of them. Whether it's this, if he goes to this, he's got completely no chance. If he goes to the Bartlett, he may have a little chance, but I think he'd still be pulled up personally. But you can't bet on them, so unfortunately, that's not going to be a bet. The interesting one is obviously Gidley Park. Now he is the class angle from the novice hurdle in the UK. You believe he is definitely one for the future, i.e., a chaser. He's a massive strapping type. Um, Typical chaser in the making. Um, However, I just think he was obviously very green that day where he went and beat Lucky Place at Cheltenham in that grade two. Um, Very green, he pulled all the way. Just looked massively raw. He's clearly got a massive engine and is a big old galloping horse. I just think he's not going to have necessarily the tactical speed in order to win a race like the Ballymore. Um, he may run fairly well, but I don't necessarily think he's going to have that ability as of yet. I think he's still very much a maturing horse where he's going to need to be given time. I don't think he's going to be massively competitive in this race. He may, the best chance he's going to have for winning one of these is going to be the Bartlett. He will definitely stay 3 miles. I have no doubt about that. And he is the type that I think has a class edge to definitely go very close in the Bartlett. But what I would say, I'm not sure if Connections may be thinking the same thing, whether Harry Fry or the ownership group would be thinking the same thing. But a Bartlett can take a lot out of a young horse, and he is a very immature horse. He's only ran 3 times over hurdles. I just would be wary of that potentially leaving a mark in the future. The Bartlett can really cause issues for horses long term. Um, it also can run really well in it and not go anywhere. It also can run really badly in it and go on to be really good chasers in the making. But I just think that would be a lot of work to put on a young horse's plate to go to a Bartlett and especially if we've got softer ground. I think if I was personally Connections, I would just hold fire and maybe go something like the Grand Theft at the Antepost Festival, and that 3 mile chase at Apple away one last year. But if you've got a live wire chance in, or potentially the best British chance you're going to have at one of these novice hurdles, you're going to have to throw him in. So I'd say for his future development, the Ballymore is probably the angle you'd probably go down. I don't think he's going to win either of them, but that is how the kind of how it would go um, with regards to him. But yeah, so that as I said with the Ballymore, I think it's just going to be won by Slade Steele or Ballyburn, whoever turns up um, in behind. The only interesting one, the one of interest in behind, should I say, sorry, is Staffordshire, not who's just changed hands from Coldwell Construction to Giggins Sound for about £510,000, which is fairly a hefty fee. Um, just getting his form up. He's ran a few times in regards to. He's ran 3 times. He's ran 3 times and won twice. His first start in a maiden hurdle at Cork was actually beat by Reading Tommy Wrong. Then has gone and beaten pretty average fields, fairly convincing though. One last time out at Downroll by 21 lengths. Um, he could be the slight lurker in that field, i.e., I think he's a little bit unexposed. He's definitely unexposed, and he's at 25 to 1 best price. could be of interest, but he might not quite have the experience at the moment to really, really challenge. But it's the slate still personally. But for me personally, it's between either Sladesdale and Ballyburn in either of those races. Uh, but yeah, getting on now to the Albert Bartlett. Bartlett, I think this is the race from a punting perspective that you should be licking your lips at from a novice hurdles. Out of all of them, you look at there's going to be a short price favourite in both the Supreme and probably the Bearing Bingham. The Triumph are going to have a short price favourite, and then really, obviously, you're in kind of handicap territory with the Boodles, which is slightly harder. The Bartlett, from a punting perspective, is of interest. Now, I think over the last 10 years, over half the winners of the Albert Bartlett have been over 10 to 1, or have definitely been double figure prices, maybe even over 8 to 1, I think. Obviously, last year, Stay Away Faye won this race at 12 to 1, obviously beating Corpus Cross, who ended up running out. I would be looking down the market in this because I'm going to look at the top end at the moment. I'll run you guys through it. I think it's fairly weak, top end wise. You've got Reading Tommy Wrong in there, who's joint favourite at the moment. I think Reading Tommy Wrong is going to go for the Ballymore. He ran well enough. He won the Lord as an ace. I don't see why you wouldn't go then for the Ballymore after that. It's a typical stepping stone towards that race. Um, so I doubt he'll go 8 to 1. But then you got High Class Hero in there at best price eights, shortest of fives. I don't see it. High Class Hero personally. I don't think that run at Thurles in January was anything to write home about. You only won just under 2 lengths of the 2 to 7 on favourite against Easy Fella. For me, no, I couldn't be having you as my Bartlett horse. I haven't seen anything that's really screamed to me. This is going to be the Bartlett horse winner, and that should be the favourite for this. I don't see it personally. I would be very, very, very cold on High Class Heroes' chances in this, and I definitely want to be looking to take him on at the front of proceedings. From in regards to a Willie Mullins standpoint, because he's always going to have a strong hand in these novice hurdles. Obviously, he's going to have the favourite in most of these races. I think Dancing City's his best chance. Obviously, Reading Tommy Wrong isn't going to go. Dancing City's only entry is into the Bartlett. And obviously, after winning Nathaniel Lacey, that's a typical stepping stone. He won that well, I thought, really nicely, actually. He's clearly come on a lot from his maiden hurdle performance at Navan, where he came fifth of 16. Ended up actually being, funny enough, behind Stella Story that day, who's clearly gone completely the other way around. But then obviously went and won quite nicely the nights I'm out at Navan before running by far a career best at 16 to 1 at Leopardstown in the DRF. I think he's, judging by what Mullins has said as well, he is clearly one he's held in fairly high regard. He actually split Ballyburn and Slade Steel in a Punchestown bumper in April. I think he just hasn't necessarily didn't come along quite as quickly as Mullins maybe anticipated. But I think he's probably his strongest dart to throw at this race. And at 9 to 1 best price, I think he could be definitely one to consider. Because this is the only place, this is the only race he's going to, and I think he's got a little bit of class, a high class hero, ironically, I think lacks, and a fair bit boot that I think high class hero also lacks. But he's clearly, obviously, as a stayer. The other one, obviously, he's going to have in that what Mullins specifically is going to have Lecky Watson. Lecky Watson, obviously, is an absolute boat. He's a massive rowboat. He will stay 100%. And he'll probably run a very consistent race. I can see him being like a Sandor Clegane, um, going off a big price, staying on up the hill, but not quite being at the front of proceedings, and he's probably going to pick up third. I think that's really where Lecky Watson's going to be. He's a bit of a boat, and I don't really see him having the class or the speed to go and win this. But I think he maybe get in. He might get in the frame. He might get in the first four, but I don't think he's going to be one to challenge the real market prince or the real protagonist in this. Now, as I said, Gidley Park, and I've already mentioned Gidley Park and gone through Cat and Teague. Wouldn't be keen on necessarily either of them. I think Gidley Park would be the one I'd favour in regards to the British oats. But there is Shannon Bobb in there for Nicky Henderson. That he obviously only ran twice for Nicky, coming out the point to point. He ran 3 times in his whole life and won a point to point, and then won a Plumpton Mickey Mouse race before mopping up that Grade 2 Albert Bartlett trial on in December meeting. at Cheltenham. So he does have course form. He has course and distance form, but he's been put away since then, and he was very raw that day. You could tell he had a lot of growing up and learning to do. He was definitely learning on the job, but he definitely stays, and that's one thing that you can that is a guarantee. Whereas some of the others will be stepping up to this for the first time. So there is always those question marks. He's a sort of 12 to 1 best price at the moment. It could be of interest, but I do think he potentially is just going to be too raw for this. I think he's a chaser in the making again, and I don't necessarily see him going on winning this kind of race. I wouldn't even be surprised if he didn't necessarily run. Maybe if he's been off the track for 90 days already, it's a long break to come back from. Um, Straight into an Albert Bartlett, as I said previously, it can definitely take a toll on a young horse. The one now I'm going to put up actually, and this would be my first selection, I would say, for the Cheltenham 2024 this year, is actually Gordon Elliott's Croke Park. He's 20 to 1 best price. I have backed him already, and I'm very keen for him in the Bartlett. I don't think he'll be good. He still holds an entry to say in the Berry and Bingham, but I don't think that's where he's going to go. He is stayer, out and out stayer. He is a bit like Lecky Watson. He's a bit of a boat. He was a very expensive boat. He cost 400 grand as a point to point recruit, 4 gig in Sound Stud at the 2022 entry sale. But I really do think he has a little bit more. He's slightly more class than a Lecky Watson, a little bit more pace, and he's definitely one I think could go really well. He's going to relish a step up and trip, relish a stiff old track like Cheltenham with an end-to-end gallop that about the Bartlett will be. I can just see him being able to stay up in within the market principles and then stay on up the hill after that. He is unproven over 3 miles, but his best work obviously came in that Grade 3 at Navan on soft and heavy ground back in November time, where he looked very classy. He ended up beating Mel Monroe that day and Search for Glory, who have all come out and won since. Yes, Search for Glory definitely has. I think Mel Monroe. I believe Mel Monroe hasn't actually, so maybe not. But you get what I'm saying. Um, Search for Glory has come out and won since then. Did completely bomb out in the Lauders of Nace, unfortunately. But Firefox ran badly that day. There was discharge found from Croke Park's nose as well. So there was a reason to that. Also, Gordon's were just running really poorly at the time. And then a week after that, Jack Kennedy came out and said, "My ride for the Bartlett. This is who I pick. I pick Croke Park." And I think you know basically who you're going to get dropped up, which is ideal. And I just think he's going to have a little bit of class that some of these might not necessarily have, and they might not necessarily lack. He's going to have a little bit more of that, and he does have speed. He's run over 2 miles. He run over 2.5 miles as well. So I think he is 20 to 1. If you can forgive his poor run in the Lawless and Ace, he is one to definitely have on side at 20 to 1, and I think he's a very good price considering it's a bit of a toss up at the moment with the market. Um, but that is everything I'd say for the novice hurdles, and in a second we get on to the juveniles. Now moving on to the juvenile hurdlers. Obviously, firstly looking at the Triumph Hurdle, I think it's not this is a bit, not necessarily really a betting contest. Gino heads the market around 8 to 11 on. Um, he looks very strong. I really don't think anything is necessarily going to touch him in regards to this race whatsoever. Willie Mullins does hold a very strong hand, a lot of kind of numerical support in the race, just through the amount of runner of numbers he's going to have. They're going to run well. You know, look at likes of Cargis, who won obviously at the DRF, and then obviously you got the likes of Storm Hart, Madgeborough, potentially Salvador Mundi. Um, and then the one of interest as well would be Bunting at a big price, so 20 to 1. If it got soft, he could have. He was only 2 lengths fourth, excuse me, out of the DRF, and I think he could actually go quite well at Cheltenham at a fairly big price. He definitely wanted to keep in the book, but maybe not one necessarily to be betting on now. I'd say you could wait until the day really with Bunting as well. Um, but I just don't think anything is really going to touch Sergino in this. He's going to be a very strong favourite. The thing, you know, the way he won and his 2 starts in England, obviously won in Auteuil, beating Salvatore Mundi that day, and obviously Batman Girac as well in that race. That run at Kempton won by I think he won by a double digit lengths the day after Boxing Day. Yeah, by 14 lengths beating Royal Way of Gary Moore's, but I think pretty much everything in that race come out and won since then, which is very strong form. And then obviously in on trials day. He won the JCB Triumph Juveniles Trial very convincingly, absolutely stuffing Burdett Road, who previous favourite for the race by 10 lengths, and obviously beat Malantino in that one as well. I don't think anything touches him. I think he's an absolute aeroplane. He's going to be an aeroplane in this. He's going to be an aeroplane in his future career in regards to being a chaser as well down the line. I think he is serious and he's going to take every inch of the beating. Kyrgyz could go close. She is obviously going to get that mare's allowance of £7, which is going to be useful, but I think Sergino is good enough to overcome that. And I think he's going to stuff pretty much everything in this. I would. The only place I'd be interested in, I mean, Burnett Road is 16 to 1. He could potentially come on. His jumping would need to improve again, but it likely probably will for the run. And he was coming off fairly long break when he ran last time, got absolutely stuffed by Sergino. He could improve to get into a place at 16 to 1. Now he's going to go. James Owen has confirmed it was a bit weak in the market earlier last week, but James Owen did confirm he would run in the race, so that's not necessarily an issue. As I said, I think Bunting is a guaranteed runner is going to be a very is a big price at 20 to 1 each way. I think he's probably going to come on significantly for that because if you look at the like where he ran up, that was only his third career start. He'd won in France, won at heavy ground at Limerick, and then came fourth out of what was a very, very, very good race in the DRF. I mean, you look at the lights in front of him. Storm Hart's had a significant amount of runs on the flat to get there, to get into a position where with experience wise, he's probably capped out. You'd say Kyrgyz obviously is going to come on a lot, and she's ran 5 times. She's run 3 times in Auteuil before moving to Willys, and then obviously Majra was third, who obviously had only run that once previously, but I think he's still fairly unexposed, and I think Bunting at a price could be of interest. Definitely one to note in the book. For me personally, I think I'll be keeping him on side. This is the one I think is an actual bet now, potentially. Is I'd put him up. Salver, Gary Moore's trained horse, has won a grade 2. He won the finale at Chepstow on the 27th of December in obviously heavy ground. He won that really nicely at grade 2 at Chepstow that day. And then obviously this weekend has only got him. Yesterday he's won the Victor Ludorum, the listed juvenile hurdle at Haydock as well. He won that fairly nice as well on completely bottomless ground. He's undefeated in his 4 starts. He's 4 from 4 for Gary Moore over hurdles. Won nicely at Warwick on his debut, and then backed that up with a very solid win at Exeter before obviously going in and notching upgraded success. He's only, this is what was crazy to me. After the grade 2, he's only went up to, he opened up his initial rating at 128. And I'd say really, he beat Castelfort by 3.5 lengths. Castelfort is rated 120. I don't think he could go up massively for that. I don't think the handicapper could really touch him massively for that. Maybe give him an extra £5. I would say giving him £5 would be where he'd be at. And he'd be then running off what? That'd be 128 up to £5. He'd be running off 133. He'd be fairly well in for a Boodles. Um, a graded level horse. He's won on good to soft ground, but the vibes from the Moor camp was that they wouldn't really be going to Cheltenham unless it was for Wood's Triumph and unless if it was for on soft to heavy ground. So really, I think he would be worth a non-runner no bet in either of the Boodles or the Triumph, but it would have to be non-runner no bet because I have a feeling he'd probably skip Cheltenham if it was good, if it was on the better side, better ground, and he'd probably head over to Aintree then. In that race that Zenta won last year. Yeah, for the grade 1 there, I think he would be a very interesting play, and in either of those each way, think he'd. I think he'd honestly. I think he probably would win the Boodles off 133 on heavy ground. I think he would maybe throw a little surprise and a little spanner in the works in regards to the placings in a Triumph. He may notch up some prize money for the Triumph, but I don't necessarily think he'd go beat Sergino even if it was completely bogged out ground. But he'd be one to keep on side, and I think actually for me as a non-runner no bet proposition, he is definitely one to consider for both of those. Um, but as I said, I think a bigger price is Salver and Bunting were the ones I'd be taking into the into the Triumph and then the Boodles. Obviously onto the Boodles now as well. But the Boodles is a tough one. We've got the Lark, got Joseph O'Brien trained Lark in the morning, heading the market 5-1. I think he's a fraud. I think he's a talking horse. I'm gonna put it out there now completely. This could be completely wrong and backfire. I think he's a complete and utter talking horse. He is the Salvatore Mundi of the bundle of the Boodles market, even worse. 5-1 for horses horses ran once or twice. It is not. It's not really anything that's going to be right home about form wise. He has been pulled out of his last. I think he's been entered 3 times over the last last 2 weeks. He's been pulled out. He's been a non-runner in all 3 of them. I'd be windy on his chances. I think he's just a talking horse. Like Salvatore Mundi, never ran before. Well, even the Salvatore Mundi one's ridiculous. He's 10-1 for a triumph. He's never ran in the UK before. He didn't even win on his first start in France. And yeah, obviously you can say, he had a tough race and you had to do the hard way against Segino, but it doesn't matter. He has never ran in the UK before. How are you even pricing him up for a triumph at 10-1? It makes no sense to proven horses. Or as proven as juveniles can be. It grinds my gears, and the people on Twitter get loud about him just annoy me because I just think you've never seen him. You might not even exist, but he obviously exists, but you've never seen him, so how would you know? It's just ridiculous. The one I think of the Boodles would be really interesting, essentially as a win bet, is Wodhooh, trained by Gordon Elliott. She's a filly, so she won't get the allowance obviously with it being a handicap, but her mark is something. She's off a very dangerous mark, but considering the notches of form she's already managed to attain over the season. I think she's only recently gone and won over at Doncaster. Just getting her mark up here. She obviously won that race, the fillies. Fillies race at Doncaster. She's won. She's been very shrewdly campaigned by Gordon. Yeah, she won the listed fillies juvenile at Doncaster, being Max of Stars by 6.5 lengths very comfortably. She was very short favourite. She won obviously that short priced. There's another short priced win at Newbury in December, and she's obviously won at Listowel, Punchestown, and Damroyd as well. I think she's beating Cossack Crack, who I know has been one who's been mentioned for this race as well. I think she is one to beat. She's very, very, very well in the one. Definitely keep on side. She's been given a rating of 130 from Handicapper after that Doncaster race. I think that is massively lenient. Um, Considering I think Milantino is off 136. He would be of interest. He's 16-1. Really, come on. He's going off 136. She'd be getting £6 from him. Um, and she'd probably be getting something from Salver as he came over as well. I think she's definitely one to keep inside. This is where she's going to go. I think the best price was 13-2 for this. She's won all of those. I mean, it's no 8-1 actually. Best price, Betfair. So I would say that's a win bet for me. She'd be the one I'd be very interested in. She's been very shrewdly campaigned, as she's picked up quite a lot of prize money um, throughout her campaign, and she's very, very much has that kind of race experience that a lot of these may not necessarily have. I think she could be a bit of an outlier in there, off a mark of 130. And she has, and I think maybe for me, from in the Boodles perspective, if you're going to cover Salver for both of those, Wodhooh maybe is going to be my Boodles selection of a win bet of 8-1. So just to summarise there, obviously with the juveniles, we're going to have, I'd say Segino is probably going to take all the beating in the Triumph, but I would just keep on Salver if it's really, really boggy, soft or heavy ground on side. Likewise, I keep Bunting at 20-1 on side. Salver's 16-1 for that. Bunting is 20's best price. Um, and I would back Salver for both of those potentially. Not, I would back Salver actually. I would. So you can get, I think, 12-1 best price, 14-1 best price for the Boodles. No, I think it's 12-1 best price for the Boodles, 16-1 best price for the Triumph. I'd back him each way in both. I'd back him definitely back him each way in both, but back him with a bookie that's giving you non-runner bets because he very much may not run. So really, for my Boodles selection, I think this is the one you can really attack, and I would say Wodhooh of Gordon Elliott, 8-1. me as a win bet is definitely something I'd be interested in. So summarize everything there. I appreciate everyone's time listening already. In regards to the novice hurdles, I think it's going to be a combination of Ballyburn and Slate Steel will win either which way they go. And then I would say put up Croke Park at 20 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett each way. And then my other one bet would be Wodhooh in the Boodles 8 to 1 and Salver for both of those non-runner no bets. As I said, I think Tellherthename at 25 to 1 is an interesting shout, but you could probably wait for the day to get some places on that one. Because I think depending on who goes where, he'll be fighting out for places. But anyway, I do appreciate your time. I will get all of this put up in the description as well, so we can kind of keep a track of everything in regards to our slips for Cheltenham. And I appreciate your time that you've given to me today. Please like and subscribe. Drop any comments down below with your thoughts, and we can play along, and we can hopefully have some good slips going into the Cheltenham Festival and then beyond then. So I appreciate everyone's time, and I will see you in the next one, which will probably be in 2 or 3. I imagine it'll be middle of the week, pushing towards the end next week. We're going to talk about the novice chasers, and then get into the handicaps after that, and then have probably a look at the open races. Luckily, there's not a massive amount of quality racing going on. However, next weekend is the Adonis at Kempton, so we will have a little discussion about that because I think there'll be that Calais de Burley of Paul Nichols, who I do fancy quite a lot for that, but depending on the price. But appreciate everyone's time, and I will catch you soon. Thank you. Bye.